Diner. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I am excited about our conversation because it's not every day that I come across an SEO strategist who works in life sciences and has a PhD degree. So you are rare. People like you. So I want to hear everything about your career journey, how you got to where you are, in the hopes of inspiring more people who understand or love the digital marketing world, but also love science. So this is like the best of both worlds. Don't you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree. I've had a long journey to get here, but it's been fun. It's been exciting. I can start sort of. Well, I'll start at the science.
Okay.
I went to college and I fell in love with science, specifically really doing research. I loved being in a lab. I just loved the act of doing research. I loved working with my hands. I loved moving one clear liquid into another tube full of clear liquid, and it really caught my imagination. And so I found my way into a lab. As a sophomore in college, fell in love, went to go do a PhD program at UC Santa Barbara. And I worked in a microbiology lab there. And again, I was just totally enamored with it. Dove in feet first and just worked a lot, and was really productive as a graduate student. And from there, I was sort of focused on being an academic professor. I wanted to go and start my own lab and do my own research. I went on to do a postdoc. And I would say around my first year into my first postdoc, I started to get this inkling that maybe this isn't the type of thing that I want to do forever. But I sort of, pushed that little voice down and just soldiered on. And I was a postdoc for 2 years, and then I went on to do another postdoc for 2 years, and that brought me down to San Diego. And it was during that second postdoc that I finally got to the point where I was sort of just burned out, fed up with doing research. I was dreading going into lab. I just didn't want to work on the experiments. I wasn't excited about it anymore. I really just, as hard as I fell in love with doing science, I fell out of love pretty quickly.
Can you think back and tell what exactly was it that caused that shift in you, where you went from I can't think of anything else to do, versus I can't see myself doing this? Was there a specific point in time, or was it like a slow, gradual pivot in your thinking?
It was gradual. I think that little voice came up during my first postdoc. And I think, graduate school is this like magical time where you're far away enough from being a professor that you can just you just focus on research, and it's just fun. It's fun to dive into something and just sort of get lost in it. But as a postdoc, this goal that I told myself I'd been working towards is getting closer and becoming more of a reality. And I think just getting closer to that reality and really being confronted with the question of do I want to do this forever? It became more present, and it just felt like a lot of pressure. So I think that years of that little voice coming up and saying hey, I don't think you really want to do this. Finally, I think just one day the switch flipped, and it was okay, I need to find something else to do. But again, I talked about doubling down in my first years at postdoc. I mean, that happened multiple times. Even in my second postdoc, that voice came up again, and I was like, no, I'm going to double down again. I applied for a K-99 grant. I applied for academic positions. That was my first year applying for academic positions. I just redoubled down, and then after that, that was my last hurrah. And after that, I gave up. Yeah.
So you never considered, because you loved the science, you loved being hands-on, was an industry position as a research scientist was not an option for you, or what were you thinking in that aspect of your career as a choice?
Yeah, I thought about it in passing, but I think what I didn't like anymore was the doing of the science, and it just wasn't. Yeah, it didn't feel. Let me see. It didn't feel authentic anymore, and I think what ultimately sent me down that path was I have a lot of scientists in my family, and some of it felt like, oh, this is sort of the family business, and it was it was sort of it was kind of I almost never let myself consider like doing anything else. And when I got so, just so burnt out and so run down from doing it, it was like I don't have it in me to pretend like this is authentic anymore. It's just not me. And so it also felt like sort of I'm going to embark on this journey of self-discovery, and that to me, I think, for better or for worse, I was like, I'm going in the opposite direction of anything science related, just to figure out like what I'm all about, not what my family's all about. So yeah.
Then what did you do?
Yeah. Well, I started just talking to people that I knew who had gotten a PhD and left. Some people that I went to graduate school with had done that, and so I started reaching out to them. LinkedIn turned into like my best friend because you could filter, people who had gotten PhDs, had advanced degrees, and were in, other roles now. And so I got on LinkedIn and just bothered people. I sent people messages, I sent connection requests, and just begged them to talk to me. I eventually I found my way like into a marketing agency, and not for a job, but like I got into contact with people, and they were like, "Hey, come into the office and like check it out. We'll sit down and talk to you for an hour." And they did, and it was great. They just answered all my questions. They told me like what their day to day was like, and that was like it was just a huge learning experience. And so I'm so grateful for those people that like took the time to talk to me. And I always try to pay that back. If someone reaches out to me, I'm like, yes, I will talk to you. I will talk to you as long as you need. And I really like paying that back. So yeah, I just gathered information, and I eventually came across someone I went to graduate school who worked in pharmaceutical marketing at an agency in San Diego, and they just happened to be hiring. And I talked to her, I interviewed for the position, and that was my first job at a lab. Yeah.
So directly from science, academic focused career dreams, you jump into marketing. What was that transition like? Did you have to get up to speed really quickly, or was it something that because you are trained as a PhD, you know how to do research, you understand analysis? Do you think that helped somewhere as you were trying to get into the role?
Most definitely. I always like to say like having a PhD, it teaches you how to learn new things really well. You get really efficient at jumping into new subjects and teaching yourself about them. So I think that was definitely it was definitely a skill that transferred directly over to being a medical writer, which was my first position. And I think there were kind of superficial things that were a bit of an adjustment. Like I have to dress up in real person clothes and and go to an office and sit for a lot of the day. Those were an adjustment, but I adjusted pretty quickly to that. The great thing about the agency was they hired a lot of PhDs, so there were other medical writers who had gotten their PhDs, and we all had kind of been through that transition, and it felt sort of like a community. We all had to learn the same new things, and so I didn't feel stupid asking a question like, "Hey, can I like leave the office for lunch?" Like simple things like that. It felt like a nice community where I could do that learning. Yeah.
So you picked up a lot of your marketing knowledge in this job. And how long did you do that before you decided, okay, I'm ready to go out on my own?
Yeah. Doing pharmaceutical marketing, it exposed me to sort of one, lane of marketing, the kind of outbound marketing. And I did that for about 2 years. And I then left for a job at a marketing agency that does more like digital marketing, sort of inbound marketing. And that was also it's in the life sciences, but it's in an industry that's more like less regulated than pharmaceutical marketing. And I really enjoyed that. I felt like when I landed at that marketing agency, I felt like I had found my kind of niche. And it was there that I learned, about inbound marketing, and really my first step into the SEO world was kind of there. I had someone who sort of showed me the ropes about SEO and content marketing, and just really enjoyed it. And I would say I stayed at that agency for another 2 years. And after that kind of 4-year period of, getting experience, sort of testing the water, figuring out if I really enjoyed doing it, that's kind of what gave me the confidence to sort of go out on my own and become an entrepreneur. Yeah.
So I want to go back to something you mentioned. I don't think a lot of people know about the difference between inbound and outbound marketing. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? And just so that if somebody is interested, they are clear on what they want to do as a career option.
Yeah, so outbound marketing you can kind of think of it as like the traditional marketing. It's like an ad during the Super Bowl. It's like you're projecting your message into the void and not really sure if anyone's listening. I mean, if it's the Super Bowl, people are probably listening, but you don't know if they're the right people. So inbound marketing sort of, it makes the customers, the goal is for the customers that are, your target audience to come to you. So it's things like, pay-per-click advertising. If I type in, let's see, antibody discovery services, and you can pay Google for, your website to show up as the number one thing that people see when they type that in. So, it's targeting people that are looking for your business. So that's kind of the main difference. Screaming.
Okay, so outbound is more like the traditional way marketing is done, and inbound is more, like you said, digital avenues of doing marketing. So there is, you have to have a little bit more of an in-depth understanding of what your audience is, who your audience is, and what are they looking for, and kind of cater to them with however the marketing channel you are picking up. Okay, awesome. So then you kind of decided that you are starting up on your own. I want to go back to that. Like, what was that decision like, where you decided you are going to, so the name of your company is Word Labs.
I
love the play on that. So tell me about that journey when you decided to start it. How did that go about?
Yeah, it's another kind of transition point in my career. Entrepreneurship was always something I was interested in. Even when I was in a lab doing research, it was something I would think about. It'd be cool to, start a company on this. And so I think it had always been in the back of my brain. And I think science writing and SEO lent itself to that particularly well because there's so little equipment required. It's, you need a computer and a place to sit down pretty much. And so I felt like it was sort of a low risk way to become an entrepreneur. And I think I was also really motivated by just the flexibility that, having your own company afforded you. It's, I like the idea of being able to pick who I worked with, and on what I worked with them on. And, I really like the freedom and also the control that it kind of afforded me. I also have, 3 kids. At the time I had 2 kids, and the idea of having just a freer schedule that if like one of them was homesick or something, I would be able to, sort of move things around to sort of accommodate them. Yeah.
So it's great for, I wouldn't call it work-life balance, but you are able to match it with your lifestyle, and you're
Yeah.
able to still work and provide that sort of you're able to get that entrepreneurial experience by doing this. Do you have a team, or are you, as they call, solopreneur?
I'm a solopreneur, but I've gone through periods where I've had subcontractors that I give regular work. And that's sort of, I've been toying with for a couple of years, just how to grow the business. And I started out doing subcontracting work with people to help me do content writing. But at the moment, I'm sort of experimenting with taking on partners with complementary services. So I have a partner who does design and creative services. I have a partner that helps me with paid advertising, like PPC ads. And so those are currently my 2 partners. And so I'm sort of seeing how it goes with them. And then, looking to take on more partners, to offer complementary services. So yeah, that's sort of the tack I've taken, at the moment. But it's sort of evolved. I mean, it's always evolving. And I've gotten to, when I took on my first subcontractors, I felt like I got so much busier, and it started to become a job that I just wasn't enjoying anymore. And I think being
like, I signed up to do business, and then you're here. So, so what I'm hearing is that entrepreneurship, there is no right way to do it. You can sort of mix and match and put things together in a way that works for you. There is a playbook, but there is no rule that you have to stick to the way things are done.
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it. I think it is it sounds obvious, but it's a very personal experience. I think figuring out what works for you is the only way to do it. Yeah.
So, what aspect of running a business that you were like not at all prepared for? It just was completely shocked you. It's like, I was not ready for handling this. Was there anything like that?
Yes, most definitely. I would say a lot of the like operational stuff, the billing and accounting, that stuff was a big, like, it took me a little bit to learn. Once I got the hang of it, I was like, all right, I got this. The thing that I struggled with for a long time, and still to some degree struggle with, is like project management. Figuring out how long something's going to take me in like realistic terms is so challenging. And when I have a bunch of projects like on top of each other, I cannot figure out how to stagger them so that I get them all done in an efficient way and everyone's happy. It's just not, my brain just isn't wired like that. So things like Monday like help, project management software, they definitely help, but I'm not like wired to think strategically about timelines. So that that is something that I was not prepared for.
The project management is big. I think that comes from also because as PhDs, you have this one big project that you're responsible for, and it's all you. But when you are jumping into business, you may have what is called a feast and a famine cycle, where
Yeah.
everything comes at the same time, and you have to commit to delivering on time. And sometimes it's like twiddling your thumbs because you're
Yeah.
like, okay, it's the summer, nobody's
Yeah,
working anymore.
I know. Yeah, it's true. One thing I've had to learn is to also, like, sometimes it's okay to ask or to say, like, I can't make this deadline. Is there any way that we could push it back? Like, that's something that just wasn't in my in my head or in my vocabulary when I first started. It's like, I have to meet this deadline. I said I would do it. I have to do it. And oftentimes there is that flexibility kind of built in. Sometimes they're not, but
Yeah.
most of the times there are. Yeah.
Was there ever a complete, like a oh no moment for you where just everything went that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong? And what did you learn from that?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if everything has gone wrong, but there were definitely some oh no moments. I would say pretty early after I started my business, I took on a client that it became clear pretty early on that we just weren't gonna, it just wasn't a good fit, as they say. Um, and so it was probably the fourth or fifth client that I had taken on. And I was in a place where, I needed to start making money from my business. And so I really went through a lot of like thought and soul searching about, like, do I just, settle down and just deal with it? Or, do I fire this client? And one of the main reasons I started my business is, as I said, like, so I could work with who I wanted to work with. And it just wasn't, I went on with it for, another week or two, and it just wasn't going well. And so I just, I think the way I framed it was like, I don't think this is a good fit. Um, and, yeah, decided not to work with that person anymore. So I think it was an oh no moment, just because I had to have a difficult conversation, and that was a struggle for me to get through. I think the other oh no moment for me in my business came a few months ago. The biotech industry has sort of slowed down. It's had a tough year. And so my work in turn had gotten a little bit slow. And it's lucky enough to be, one of the only kind of slow periods I've experienced aside from when I first started. And so I got pretty anxious about that. I was afraid that no one's going to have marketing budget anymore. AI is going to replace everything that I do, and I'm never going to have work again. And so I kind of I let that, I recognize that anxiety, and I let it sort of percolate for a day or two, and then I just started reaching out to people and trying to drum up more business, and was able to do so in a couple weeks, and now I'm busy again. So it was a happy ending, but
Very
definitely
good.
not a moment. Yeah.
So, what I'm hearing, so many things that you have to do as an entrepreneur, right? You not only have to do the actual science writing and the communication part, which, because of your science background, probably that is the easiest part of the job. What are the other things, like in terms of skills? What did you feel like you really had to get good at over the years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think productivity was sort of one of my real things that I had to learn. Just I just had to get, especially when I have a lot of projects, I would be working for like 15 minutes on one thing and then think about another thing. And I'm like, crap, I got to do that by the end of the day. And then like switch over. And in that, I would do that like 7, 8 times a day. And in doing that switching, your brain has to like totally recalibrate to a new task. And I was just wasting a lot of time doing that. And so I sort of had to figure out how to organize my day and organize my week so that I was reaching goals, making deadlines. And so I ended up reading a book that I would recommend to anyone called Deep Work by a guy, Cal Newport.
Cal Newport. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's
Love that book. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And I really follow a lot of what he says in the book. The night before, I'll like block off my calendar for like what times I'm going to spend working on what projects. I schedule time to check my email, check social media, and I really try to stick to it. Some days I'm not so great, but just the act of the night before, like knowing what I'm going to sit down at my desk and work on it was a total game changer for me. Yeah.
So definitely productivity. But when it comes to actually getting clients and making the money, was sales easy for you? Was like reaching out on LinkedIn to somebody and seeing if there is a potential for a project? Was that easy for you? And if it was not, how did you go about getting good at it?
Yeah. I think the reaching out for informational interviews when I was, first thinking about leaving my postdoc was really good training. I didn't find it so hard to reach out to people, and just like set up a first meeting. That actually was pretty natural. I would say transitioning from that phase of like, meeting and talking to let's actually do a project together, that was definitely a barrier to get over. It's like, how do we actually start doing the thing? And how do I get the information that I need to start doing that thing? That is something that I definitely struggled with. Unfortunately, I just went through a lot of trial and error, and I didn't read anything that helped me, but I had a couple of clients that I felt like we had a really good connection, like in our first meeting, and then it just never turned into anything. And I really tried to like reflect on those and say like, what went wrong? How could that have gone more smoothly? It was that, and I think talking to and meeting other science writers and just seeing how they run their business, and asking them those types of questions like, hey, how do you move from that just meeting and talking phase to doing business together phase, and just gathering experience and information really helped with that.
So community helps a lot, building that sense of that little circle of people who are in the same boat and sharing ideas and little wins on what works is
Yes.
what I'm hearing you say. It's important.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. Community is important, most definitely, and that is definitely something that I missed when I left my full-time job. Yeah.
So, was there any point in your career journey as an entrepreneur running the business by yourself? Was there ever a point where you second guessed this decision of yours, where you were like, I don't know, maybe that academic job wasn't too bad? Because sometimes it is very similar to running a business. You are on your own. You still have to apply for grants, and you have to sell your science to funding agency. And so there are a lot of parallels between entrepreneurship and running a lab by yourself. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And did you ever think that, oh, I don't know?
Yes, I have for sure, and I would say not so much in the science world. My wife is a professor, and she runs her own lab, and so I feel like I get like a little taste of what that's like from talking to her, and that's all the taste I need. I don't need any more than that. Um, in terms of leaving my solopreneurship for a full-time job as a science writer at like a company or something is definitely something I've thought about. I'll see cool job postings on LinkedIn and think, wow, it'd be really fun to work with them. That has definitely caught my attention in the past, and I think during this last kind of business slowdown, I definitely I did apply for a couple of jobs, um, just because I was worried. I was worried that the business wouldn't come back, and as you said, there's a lot of pros to having a full time job. 401k, health and medical insurance, and dental insurance, like all of that stuff is paid time off. Also,
Yeah.
like all of that stuff is appealing. There's definitely a reason people take full time jobs. So I don't think that will always look attractive to me. But I think the kind of freedom and the control that I have in my own business, especially as things got busier again, I think I value those more than the other things. Yeah.
So it's nice to have an honest self-awareness of what's more important to you. Both are definitely an option. If you do want to go into entrepreneurship, go for it. But a 9 to 5 job is also, as a science writer, is also a great option. So
Yep.
nobody's better or worse. It's your preferences on what is more important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, the only way you find out is by doing it. And I was lucky enough to have spent time in a 9 to 5 job and get some experience doing it. And that's ultimately what gave me the skills and the confidence to go and do it on my own. Yeah.
So now let's talk money, because I feel like it is almost a taboo. Most people are not willing, or most of the times they do set unrealistic expectations of, oh, if you're an entrepreneur, you are just cashing it in, and your life is good, and you're flying business class, and 6 figures and 8 figures are, that's usually what they call when they think you're an entrepreneur. So I just wanted to, in terms of expectations versus reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're running a business on your own, with a PhD, and you're working with life science agencies and biotech companies, and so what was your expectation like, and what was the reality that now
Yeah.
that you are in the business for so many years?
Yeah, I sort of set my first year out. I set the goal of being able to make, $80,000 a year, and I was like, if I can do that in my first year, that would be amazing. I don't think I hit that mark my first year, but I kept I kept trying to get there, and eventually I did. And then I set, another goal. I was like, okay, if I can make $100,000 a year, that would be great. And I've been fortunate enough to also hit that mark. And so I think setting those goals has been really like important for me, kind of staying productive and staying busy. Like it's always in the back of my head. And so I think those goals are good to set. What I've had a little bit more trouble with is figuring out like when to raise my rates. I don't I haven't I've sort of done it. I've tried to do it strategically, but if I after a couple of years in business, I was sort of like, okay, I have enough experience now. I've been doing it long enough. I have these, valuable skills. I think it's time to sort of raise my rates. And so it's a tough thing to navigate, but I think figuring out when to do that is again, it's kind of a personal thing. But I think it's important to do. And just this year, I started doing. I told all my clients that I'd be doing a 3% increase a year just to keep up with inflation. Yeah, it was. I think that was something that was sort of a tough decision, because it's always. I just find it hard to ask people for more money, But I think it also makes sure that I'm compensated and can stay in business to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good. So definitely set goals, income goals, and don't be afraid to ask for what you think you're worth, and be realistic about it. And because what you are providing is valuable, it is helpful, it is what the company needs, and you are there to provide it to them. So don't be afraid to ask for a raise when you think you're ready for it.
This is another place where community really helps. Asking what other people charge. It can be uncomfortable, as you said. It can be taboo, but most people are pretty open about it. I've found. So it's good. It's good to know.
Great.
I think.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So now, if you had to start all over again, right? Mm-hmm. And knowing everything that you know, what were the things that you would not change? And what were the things that you were like, oh, now that I know that, that is not how I would go about this? Were there any specific things that you can pinpoint?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think, I think I would change my model a little bit, the model I launched with, which is just like, just doing it myself. And I think I would start with a sort of partner model, because I think, offering multiple kind of interrelated services, I think it's a really appealing offering for kind of mid-sized to bigger companies. And I think that would have been a good way to position the company, when I first started. I didn't have the skills to do that, but knowing what I know now, I think that's how I would have started. And also just being able to more efficiently guide, those first conversations with clients into actual business. I think that would have also been a really nice skill to have in the very beginning. Yeah.
So what advice do you give to somebody who's heard you and is thinking, I might want to try entrepreneurship, but I'm not really sure if a 9-to-5 is right for me, who are really at that cusp of, they've completed their postdocs and now they're deciding what to do with their life. Mm-hmm. What advice do you give to somebody who's in that place?
Yeah. I think if you're thinking at all about entrepreneurship, that means that you're interested. And because it's scary. It's not for the faint of heart. And if you're just interested in it at all, I think that means that you should listen to and acknowledge that voice. That being said, there are realistic things that you have to consider. The financial side of it can be tough in the beginning. And if you don't have any experience in that field, I think I certainly wouldn't feel confident, going and starting my own business in it. So I think you need to evaluate, what your financial situation is, how much experience you have. And I think gathering realistic information from people who are doing that job, I think can really help you inform your decision. But I think the 9 to 5 job, right out of a research lab, I think it's a good place to start. Just to get experience in that new field in a sort of structured environment. That's the other thing about entrepreneurship. It's like, if you don't have those, kind of productivity lessons and like a framework with which to kind of structure your day, I think you can get lost in it, definitely. Yeah.
I hear you, because I also feel like there is this narrative about entrepreneurship where it is you just have to, that's all you can do 24/7. You have to think about it. You have to let everything go. But I think that narrative can be a little bit misleading and discouraging for people who want to do it, but are afraid of, as you said, the financial pressure that,
Yeah.
working on something for years at a time with no reassurance that any of it is going to work.
Yeah.
And it's completely okay to start building something on your own on the side. You can have a job and start small. It doesn't, like, as you said, just start start freelancing on your own and see if you like it, because it will give you a taste of exactly what you said. You still have to go out, look for clients, and manage the invoicing and the project planning. And so you will know very soon enough if you think it was a mistake or you like it, and you still have your job to go back to, or if
Yeah.
things take off. I feel that is a nice balance for anybody who just wants to test out the waters.
Mm-hmm.
It might be difficult to balance them, but I think it's better than the other option where you're just going in completely blind.
Definitely. Yeah. I kind of view my career path as like transition 1 out of the lab into a full-time job, transition 2 full-time job to entrepreneurship. I think doing both at the same time would have been craziness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, now that you've been in this industry, you have been in this business for so many years, how has the content marketing landscape changed from since when you started to what you see today? And in terms of opportunities for newcomers, what should they be focusing on in terms of these are the skills I need to get ready for?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing that pops into my head is AI. I mean, I think that's on everyone's mind these days. I think with SEO, especially, like, well, people aren't going to go to Google anymore for answers to their questions. They're just going to go to ChatGPT or whatever. So it's definitely on my mind. I think on my most anxious days, I think like AI is going to replace what I can do, and I'll be out of a job. That being said, I have incorporated it into my daily work. I think I've heard people say like it helps you get off of a blank page, and I really connect to that. If I just need to outline something, it's amazing for that. If I need to do, dive into the scientific literature, I can sort of use ChatGPT alongside that, literature review process. And it's really helpful for the sort of first draft research phases of what I do. And so I think being acquainted with, ChatGPT and other AI tools is going to give you it's going to make you faster, more efficient. And I think you'll find it really helpful as you become, a more seasoned science writer. I think also just on the topic of, fear of AI taking over, I think right now, I don't think the AI can do, exactly like provide the same value that I do with my writing. I don't know if it'll get to that point. But I think even if it does, I think people will still value human generated writing. I think there's still going to be creativity and interesting content that people can produce that AI can't produce, no matter how sophisticated the algorithm. So that's my hope for the future.
And I will agree with you on that. I think initially when AI came into the scene, everybody was excited that they don't have to do any more writing. And then over the years that they have seen its output, and then they compare it with a human generated output, there's something lost in that process. And it's quite obvious when you read an AI generated content versus something that a human has written. So I feel if you are somebody who is starting out, I would say embrace it. Don't be scared of it, and upskill yourself. I mean, it is a great tool. I don't think it'll replace you, but it may replace, like they say, I see it everywhere. It'll not replace you, but it'll replace somebody who uses the tool. So it'll replace, you will be fine as long as you're using the tool. So I think that is a good way to look at it. So in terms of skills, I think learning how to prompt and get good outputs is going to be crucial. So if you're into writing, expect to use it as a brainstorming partner, as I've heard people say. Just don't get it to do your work for you. It's not going to do that.
No, definitely not.
Awesome. Do you have anything that we haven't covered in this little chat? Do you want to cover something or talk about something that is more specific that I may have asked you?
Yeah, I mean, I started my own science writing company, Word Lab, but I feel like entrepreneurship is a disease that I can't get rid of. And I recently started another company called Science Vibes, which sells like science-inspired art and T-shirts, which I'm wearing right now. That's Rosalind Franklin. So we sell like, some AI generated images, and then also some patent art, like in the kind of from the molecular biology world. So that's sort of my most recent passion project, and just wanted to give it a shout out here.
Love it. I'll add that link in the show notes for anybody who wants to check it out.
Perfect. That'd be great. Only one more thing. If anyone is interested in science writing as a career, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
And I'll just put your email address or LinkedIn to the show notes.
Yeah, please.
So anybody who wants to reach out, ask questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elie. This has been fun.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for your thoughtful questions. I appreciate it.